The ultimatum, the silence in Earth's Global Defense Command Center shattered at exactly 347 hours on a Wednesday morning that would forever divide human history into before and after. Commander Michael Torres was reviewing routine satellite data when every screen in the facility blazed white, then shifted to display an image that made his heart stop. The being on the screen was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with dark purple skin that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. 4 arms extended from its broad torso, each ending in 3-fingered hands that moved with deliberate precision. Its face was angular and severe, with golden eyes that held no warmth, only cold calculation. Behind it, visible through what appeared to be a viewport, hung a fleet of ships so vast they blocked out the stars. Commander Torres stood frozen as the alien began to speak. The words came through perfectly translated, suggesting technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. Inhabitants of the third planet, the creature's voice resonated with authority that had commanded countless worlds. I am Supreme Arbiter Krell of the Dominion Collective. We have observed your species for 6 of your planetary cycles. You have reached the threshold of interstellar awareness, and thus fall under our jurisdiction. Around the command center, officers abandoned their posts and gathered around the main display. Some whispered prayers in languages from across the globe. Others simply stared, unable to process the reality of humanity's first contact with alien civilization. Krell continued without pause or emotion. The Dominion Collective has brought order to 4,732 species across this galactic sector. We offer protection, technology, and integration into a civilization that spans 10,000 star systems. In exchange, you will accept our governance, dismantle your primitive military forces, and contribute resources to the greater collective good. The screen changed, displaying holographic recordings that made Torres feel sick to his core. Planets burned under weapons that seemed to tear reality itself. Cities crumbled as populations fled in terror. One image showed a world encased entirely in crystal, its continents visible but lifeless beneath a transparent shell. This was the Zetherian home world, Krell explained. They refused our generous offer. They believed their isolation would protect them. They were mistaken. Do not repeat their error. The alien leaned forward, its golden eyes seeming to stare directly at Torres. You have 48 of your hours to signal complete surrender. Transmit your acceptance on this frequency. Any resistance will result in your classification as a hostile species, and you will be eliminated as a threat to galactic stability. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in shocked silence. Then chaos erupted as every communication system activated simultaneously. World leaders, military commanders, civilian authorities, everyone was trying to reach the command center at once. Torres felt his hands shaking as he reached for his secure communication terminal. He entered a code that he had memorized 15 years ago during a classified briefing that most people believed was just a training exercise. His message was simple and went to only 3 people on Earth. Nightfall condition confirmed. Execute prepared response. Humanity remembers. Across the planet, the response appeared to be exactly what the Dominion expected. News broadcasts showed panic in major cities. Stock markets crashed. Religious leaders called for prayer. Military forces seemed to scatter in confusion. Ships launched from Earth's orbital stations in seemingly random directions, fleeing toward the outer colonies with no apparent coordination. But appearances were deceiving. Deep beneath, the Atacama Desert in Chile, Dr. Yuki Tanaka stood in a facility that officially didn't exist. The Nobel Prize-winning physicist had supposedly retired 5 years ago to teach at a small university. In reality, she had been leading humanity's most critical project, one that had begun 23 years earlier, when deep space monitoring stations detected the first signs that Earth was not alone in the universe. Yuki, The signal just went out. Her assistant called from across the massive underground laboratory. All sites are acknowledging receipt. The foundries are beginning their activation sequences. Yuki nodded, her face calm despite the weight of what was about to happen. 23 years ago, automated probes had detected unusual radiation signatures from dying civilizations. By analyzing the patterns of destruction, humanity's best minds realized that something was systematically conquering the galaxy, moving ever closer to Earth. The governments of the world had faced a choice: announce the threat and cause global panic, or prepare in secret and hope humanity would be ready when the enemy arrived. They chose preparation. What followed was the most ambitious covert operation in human history. Mining operations in the asteroid belt had secretly constructed massive shipyards inside hollowed-out asteroids. Scientific research stations studying Jupiter's moons had actually been testing weapons designed specifically for space combat. Commercial shipping routes had been used to position military assets across the solar system, all disguised as civilian infrastructure. They called it Protocol. Nightfall, the plan to make humanity appear weak and disorganized while secretly preparing an overwhelming defensive response. Status. Report from all stations, Yuki requested, pulling up holographic displays that showed the entire solar system. Her assistant's voice was steady as she read the incoming data. The Olympus foundries on Mars are online. Power signatures reading nominal. The Galileo shipyards near Jupiter have dropped their camouflage and are beginning launch sequences. The Saturn defense ring confirms all weapon platforms are charging. The Kuiper Belt installations report full operational status. Yuki allowed herself a small smile. The Dominion thought they were dealing with a primitive species confined to a single planet. They had no idea that humanity had been building in secret for over 2 decades, or that every major installation in the solar system was actually a military asset waiting for this exact moment. Commander, Torres received confirmation signals from across the solar system as Protocol Nightfall moved into its next phase. On his private screen, he watched as installations that had masqueraded as civilian facilities for years revealed their true nature. The mining ship Prosperity had been hauling ice from Europa to Mars colonies for 8 years, making regular runs that established it as a harmless commercial vessel. Now its cargo bays opened to reveal advanced fighter craft that had been transported piece by piece and assembled in secret. Captain Jennifer Reeves, who had won awards for her efficiency as a civilian pilot, was actually a combat veteran with 300 hours of zero gravity warfare training. The research station New Horizons had published dozens of papers on cosmic radiation and solar wind patterns. Now it powered up weapons arrays that had been disguised as scientific instruments, each one capable of punching through any known armor. Throughout the asteroid belt, chunks of rock that had been classified as unremarkable began moving with purpose, revealing themselves as mobile weapons platforms that had been positioned over years of careful planning. The Dominion fleet was entering the outer solar system, moving with the confidence of conquerors who had never faced serious resistance. Their ships were massive, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built, powered by technology that seemed to defy physics itself. But Supreme Arbiter Krell and his forces were making a critical mistake. They assumed that technological superiority guaranteed victory. They had conquered thousands of worlds using the same formula: arrive with overwhelming force, issue an ultimatum, and watch as primitive civilizations collapsed under the psychological pressure. They had never faced humanity. They had never faced a species that had spent 10,000 years fighting itself, learning every possible way to turn disadvantage into advantage, to use deception and strategy to overcome superior force. Torres looked at the countdown, timer showing 36 hours until the Dominion's deadline. He opened a channel to Dr. Tanaka and the other members of the Nightfall Command Council. "All stations report ready," he said quietly. "The Black Armada awaits your order." Yuki's face appeared on his screen, and Torres saw in her eyes the same determination he felt in his own heart. "Begin Phase 2, she ordered. "Show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. Show them that some species don't surrender. Some species fight back." Asterisk across the solar system, hidden forces that had waited decades for this moment began moving into position. The Black Armada, humanity's secret fleet, was awakening, and the Dominion Collective was about to learn a lesson that would echo across the galaxy. Never mistake human patience for weakness, and never assume that silence means surrender. The war for Earth's freedom was about to begin, and humanity intended to win. Asterisk. The awakening Supreme Arbiter Krell stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and watched the primitive human world through sensors that could detect a single heartbeat from orbit. Around him, his bridge crew worked with the efficient precision of a species that had conquered galaxies. Everything was proceeding exactly as it had for the previous 4,000 conquests. "Status report," Krell commanded, his forearms clasped behind his back in the traditional pose of Dominion authority. His sensor chief, a young officer named Vexer, whose scales still showed the bright purple of inexperience, consulted his displays. "Supreme Arbiter, the human electromagnetic output has decreased by 73%. Their communication networks appear to be failing. We're detecting widespread panic across all population centers. Multiple ships have fled toward their outer colonies with no apparent coordination or destination." Krell's mouth parts clicked in satisfaction, the Dominion equivalent of a smile. Typical primitive response. Fear leads to chaos. Chaos leads to collapse. Collapse leads to submission. How long until we reach optimal intimidation distance? 18 of their hours, Supreme Arbiter. We will position the fleet in full view of their home world, and they will see clearly that resistance is futile. What Krell couldn't see were the 17 objects that his sensors had classified as lifeless asteroids, drifting in the cold darkness of space. Each one had been carefully positioned over the past 5 years, their trajectories calculated to appear completely natural. Inside those hollowed rocks, human crews waited in absolute silence, their life support systems running at minimum power, their hulls coated in materials that absorbed sensor sweeps like darkness swallowing light. Lieutenant Sarah Park floated in zero gravity inside the asteroid designated Watch Post 7, monitoring the Dominion fleet through passive sensors that detected but didn't emit, making her position invisible to enemy technology. She had been stationed here for 6 months, living in cramped quarters with 11 other crew members, waiting for a day she had half believed would never come. "Captain," she whispered into her communication headset, though there was no way the Dominion could hear her. "I'm counting 37 capital ships, each one at least 5 kilometers in length. Escort vessels number over 200. This is significantly larger than intelligence predicted." Captain Marcus Webb's voice came through her earpiece, calm despite the circumstances. "Acknowledged, Park. Are you recording all sensor data?" "Every second, sir. Their shield configurations, weapon placements, communication frequencies, everything. Command is going to have a complete tactical analysis before they even know we exist." Across the solar system, similar reports flooded into the Nightfall Command Council. Dr. Yuki Tanaka stood in her hidden facility beneath the Atacama Desert, surrounded by holographic displays showing the entire battlefield. Beside her, Commander Michael Torres coordinated with military assets that had been hidden for over 20 years. "The Dominion is following Pattern Delta," Yuki observed, highlighting the enemy fleet's formation on the tactical display. They're arranging themselves to maximize visible intimidation while maintaining defensive superiority. It's the same formation they used against the Zetherian civilization and the Korthan resistance. Torres nodded grimly. Which means they're predictable. They've won so many times with the same tactics that they've stopped adapting. That's going to be their downfall. A new voice joined the conversation as Admiral Patricia Okonkwo appeared on the communication screen from the hidden command station on Luna. All Black Armada elements report ready for deployment. We have 147 ships ranging from fighters to heavy cruisers, all constructed in secret over the past 2 decades. Additionally, we have 312 weapon platforms positioned throughout the system, and over 800 automated defense drones ready for deployment. Yuki pulled up another display showing power readings from across the solar system. The Dominion's sensors are designed to detect standard fusion and antimatter signatures. Our ships use quantum-locked reactors that were specifically designed to have a different energy profile. Until we power up our weapons, they'll read us as background radiation or natural phenomena. How long until the Dominion reaches their attack position? Torres asked. 16 hours, Admiral Okonkwo replied. They're moving slowly, deliberately, making sure Earth's population sees them coming. They want maximum psychological impact. Torres felt cold determination settle over him. Then in 16 hours, we're going to give them maximum tactical surprise instead. Admiral, begin moving the Black Armada into assault positions. Keep power signatures at minimum until my signal. Dr. Tanaka, I want every weapon platform charged and ready. And somebody get me a direct line to the civilian shelters. When this starts, people need to be underground. Across Earth, emergency broadcasts began directing populations to underground shelters that had been constructed over the past 2 decades under the guise of disaster preparedness. Most people thought they were protection against natural disasters or nuclear war. The truth was far more extraordinary. Supreme Arbiter Krell reviewed the preliminary reports from his scout ships and felt the satisfaction of another successful intimidation campaign. The humans were responding exactly as predicted: panic, disorganization, and the beginning stages of social collapse that would make formal surrender a relief rather than a humiliation. Supreme Arbiter, Vexor called out. We're detecting some unusual energy readings from the outer system. Multiple sources activating simultaneously. Krell's attention sharpened. Specify. Unknown, sir. The signatures don't match any known human technology in our database. Power levels are increasing across approximately 300 distinct locations. For the first time in his 20 years of conquest, Krell felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. Display locations. The tactical hologram lit up with red markers scattered throughout the human star system. They weren't random. They formed a 3-dimensional network that completely surrounded the Dominion fleet's projected path. Analysis, Krell demanded. Supreme Arbiter, this doesn't match any known primitive defensive pattern. The energy signatures are too sophisticated, too coordinated. It's as if the sensor chief's words were cut off as space itself seemed to tear open around the Dominion fleet. What had appeared to be empty vacuum suddenly blazed with activity as hundreds of human vessels dropped their stealth measures and powered up their systems simultaneously. The Black Armada had awakened. Captain Jennifer. Reeves sat in the command chair of the heavy cruiser Defiant, which until 10 minutes ago had been disguised as the commercial mining ship Prosperity. Around her, a bridge crew that had trained for this moment for years worked with calm efficiency. All weapon systems online, her tactical officer reported. Targeting solutions locked on designated enemy vessels. Mass driver capacitors at full charge. Jennifer looked at the massive Dominion flagship that dominated her forward viewport. For 8 years, she had played the role of a civilian pilot, hauling ice and pretending to be nothing more than a merchant. Now she would show the Dominion what humanity really was. "This is Captain Reeves to all Black Armada vessels," she transmitted on the secure quantum channel. "Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. Remember that today we show the galaxy that humanity doesn't surrender. All ships, weapons free on my mark." Throughout the solar system, humanity's hidden fleet moved into attack positions with a coordination that stunned the Dominion observers. Ships emerged from behind asteroids, dropped camouflage fields, and formed attack formations that demonstrated years of training and preparation. On the Eternal Dominion, alarms screamed across every station as Dominion sensors finally realized the trap they had flown into. What should have been a primitive species cowering in fear had transformed into a coordinated military force that outnumbered the Dominion's advance fleet. "How is this possible?" Krell roared, his forearms gesturing frantically at the tactical displays. "Our intelligence showed no significant military capability. No advanced shipyards. No fleet assets." Vexer's voice shook as he reported. "Supreme Arbiter, we're detecting 147 warships of unknown design, over 300 weapon platforms, and hundreds of smaller attack craft. They're surrounding us on all vectors. Their weapon signatures indicate technology we've never encountered before." Krell's mind raced. In 4,000 conquests, nothing like this had ever happened. Species either surrendered or were crushed by overwhelming force. They didn't hide fleets. They didn't deceive Dominion intelligence. They didn't turn the hunter into the hunted. "All ships, battle formation Delta." Krell commanded. "Raise shields and prepare to engage. We still have superior numbers and technology. These primitives cannot—" His words were interrupted as the Black Armada opened fire. Asterisk. Human weapons were different from anything the Dominion had faced before. Instead of energy beams or plasma torpedoes, humanity had developed kinetic mass drivers that accelerated projectiles to a significant fraction of light speed. The Dominion's energy shields, designed to deflect or absorb directed energy weapons, were almost useless against solid matter moving at such velocities. The first salvo struck 3 Dominion escort vessels. Shields flickered and failed as tungsten projectiles punched through them like paper, creating massive hull breaches that vented atmosphere and crew into the void of space. "Return fire!" Krell screamed. All batteries maximum power. The Dominion fleet's weapons came online, filling space with deadly energy beams that had burned through planetary defenses on 1,000 worlds. But the human ships moved with an agility that seemed impossible for vessels of their size, executing maneuvers that suggested either incredibly advanced propulsion systems or pilots with superhuman reflexes. Dr. Yuki Tanaka watched the battle unfold from her command center, monitoring data that flowed in from hundreds of sources. "They're adapting faster than predicted," she observed. "The Dominion has started targeting our weapon platforms instead of our ships." Commander Torres nodded, his fingers moving across holographic controls. "Expected. Activate protocol swarm. Release the drones." Throughout the asteroid belt, hundreds of automated defense drones that had been hidden inside seemingly natural rocks suddenly activated. Each one was small, about the size of a fighter craft, but they moved with computer-guided precision that no living pilot could match. They swarmed with the Dominion fleet like angry insects. Their small but powerful weapons, targeting sensor arrays, communication nodes, and weapon systems. Supreme Arbiter Krell watched in growing horror as his fleet, which should have been conducting a simple intimidation exercise, found itself in a genuine battle against an enemy that had clearly been preparing for this encounter for years. His ships were taking damage. His crews were dying. And worst of all, the humans were demonstrating tactical creativity that suggested they had studied Dominion combat doctrine and developed specific counters to every standard maneuver. "Supreme Arbiter," Vexer called out, his voice tight with fear. "We're receiving a transmission from the human forces. Audio only. Put it through." Krell growled. Commander Michael Torres's voice filled the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, speaking with calm authority that carried more weight than any threat. "Supreme Arbiter Krell, this is Commander Michael Torres of the Earth Defense Force. You came to our system expecting us to surrender. You expected us to be primitive and afraid. You are wrong on both counts." Krell's 4 hands clenched into fists. "You cannot win this battle, human. We have reinforcements. We have technology beyond your comprehension. Surrender now, and we will spare your world." Torres's laugh was cold and hard. "You still don't understand. For 23 years, we've been watching you. We've studied every species you've conquered, analyzed every battle you've fought, and learned from every mistake your victims made. We built our fleet in secret. We hid our weapons in plain sight. We pretended to panic while we prepared. And now, Arbiter Krell, you're going to learn what every conqueror in human history eventually learned. We don't surrender easily. And we never stop fighting." The transmission ended, and immediately the human attack intensified. Ships that had been holding back revealed additional weapons. Platforms that had seemed damaged suddenly came back online. And from the outer system, more vessels began appearing, suggesting the Black Armada was even larger than initial scans had indicated. Captain Jennifer Reeves guided the Defiant through a complex series of maneuvers, her crew working with the seamless coordination of people who had trained together for years. They had practiced these exact scenarios hundreds of times in secret simulations, preparing for an enemy they hoped would never come, but knew eventually would. "Target the flagship's port weapons array," she ordered. "Full salvo. All mass drivers." The Defiant shuddered as its main weapons fired, sending dozens of projectiles screaming toward the Eternal Dominion at velocities that made interception almost impossible. Several struck home, tearing through shields that were already weakened by sustained fire from multiple directions. On Earth, billions of people watched from underground shelters as live feeds showed humanity's secret fleet engaging the alien invaders. Fear transformed into hope as they realized their species had not been unprepared, had not been caught defenseless. Their governments, their military, their scientists had been ready. The battle raged for hours, a brutal dance of destruction in the cold darkness of space. The Dominion fleet, despite its technological advantages, found itself outmaneuvered and overwhelmed by an enemy that fought with creativity, determination, and the desperation of a species defending its only home. As the 18th hour of battle approached, Supreme Arbiter Krell faced a reality that no Dominion commander had faced in centuries: defeat. His fleet was shattered. Nearly half his ships were destroyed or disabled. The humans showed no signs of weakening, and their tactics suggested they had reserves still waiting to be deployed. "Supreme Arbiter," Vexer said quietly, "we should signal retreat. If we stay, we may lose the entire fleet." Krell stared at the tactical display, watching red icons representing destroyed Dominion ships fade from the screen. His pride warred with his survival instinct. Finally, survival won. "All ships," he transmitted, his voice heavy with defeat, "fall back to the outer system jump point. Prepare for emergency transit." As the battered Dominion fleet began its retreat, Commander Torres stood in the Nightfall Command Center, surrounded by cheering officers and staff. But he didn't join the celebration. Instead, he opened a channel to all human forces. "All ships maintain pursuit but do not follow beyond the system boundary. We've won this battle, but the war may just be beginning. The Dominion knows about us now. They'll be back with reinforcements. But today, we've sent a message to the galaxy. Earth will not surrender. Humanity will not kneel. We are the Black Armada, and we stand ready to defend our home against any threat. Dr. Yuki Tanaka watched the Dominion ships vanish into faster-than-light transit, carrying with them the story of their defeat. She knew Torres was right. This was just the beginning. But it was a beginning filled with hope rather than despair. The galaxy is about to learn something important, she said quietly to Torres. They're about to learn that humanity is no longer alone and afraid. We're armed, we're ready, and we're not going anywhere. High above Earth, the Black Armada held its position, a silent guardian that had been hidden for decades and revealed in humanity's darkest hour. The ships gleamed in the light of the sun, no longer disguised, no longer hiding. They were a promise and a warning to anyone who might threaten Earth. Humanity had risen. The Black Armada had awakened. And the galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk.